Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so first of all, I just want to announce that this Friday I'm going to be doing a free show in Los Angeles. If you live in LA, come down to Thai Angel in K-Town. Just going to be doing some chatting with the crowd, freestyling, and performing some of my tracks. So if you're interested in that, you like the music, and you want to see me do a sort of live pod type of thing, as well as some other performers, come through. It should be a good time, and it's free. But anyway, Adam Mockler did an interview with Gavin Newsom, and this is in the midst of this broader kind of conversation about Gavin Newsom as a potential contender for a 2028, despite how far away that is. Gavin Newsom has a way of just sort of angling politically. So there's just been a lot of talk about whether or not he's a viable candidate. And most people on the left feel that he is not a viable candidate because he's too slippery and he's too attached to like corporate power and pro-business type interests. So that's a little bit of what Adam Mockler asks him about here, but it's a very quick interview. It's only about 14 minutes long, at least what it got clipped down to. And here's just sort of a glimpse at the type of access that a guy like Mockler is starting to get, and the type of guardrails that might place on your commentary or your interview questions. So here's Mockler with Gavin Newsom.
Well, one thing it's not is a sanitized version. It's not a political book. And I say that with respect, and I don't mean to malign or suggest pointing to any other books that are out there, but historically politicians, particularly those who are in elected office, tend to sanitize so much of what they write. This is anything but.
Speaking of people who are not good to look up to, it feels like so many people in Trump's administration have gotten caught lying, straight up lying about their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Elon Musk lied about his involvement. He was actually trying to come to the island. Trump, of course, has lied about his involvement every single day. But someone that recently was really caught lying was Howard Lutnick, who said that he had cut Epstein off in 2005. He said he got the heebie-jeebies, wouldn't let his family around him. But now we learn that he had visited Epstein's island with his family. He's in more trouble for alleged corruption with his family this week. Do you think Howard Lutnick should resign, be fired? What type of accountability would you like to see for these people who are just lying their asses off?
There's been no accountability across the spectrum. When the irony is we're seeing there's been accountability around the globe, but not in the United States of America. And Lutnick's just exhibit A. He may not, I don't know, there's nothing to suggest he was a perpetrator of certain acts, but he certainly was an enabler because he knew at that point about the accusations. This was after these accusations were out there. He can't claim ignorance on the front end. In fact, he himself claimed knowledge and said he discussed me. I had the heebie-jeebies. And then we find out, well, that didn't stop him from going to the island and who knows how many times. So, we know what we know, but we don't know what we don't know because so much has been redacted. This cover-up continues. So, look, I'm all for accountability. This whole Epstein file, though, it's all about just the elites protecting the elites. It just goes to the worst of what our instincts were, that there's a certain set of rules for thee and then the rest of us. And Trump is sort of the manifestation of that. Lutnick falls very nicely knitted into that as well. And so I really like what Ossoff said. I'm gonna go into Georgia next, about this Epstein class. It was very resonant because it sort of captures, it layers so much of this mosaic that's being knitted. But Lutnick needs, I think, to come clean, and he needs to explain himself a hell of a lot more than he has.
My team and I talk a lot about how the Democrats for the past decade have been unified by our opposition to Donald Trump, and we need something affirmative. We need something we can fight for. And in your state of California, CalRx has been something that you have been pushing the envelope on. Insulin is down to $11. Is that what it is?
Yeah, we just did our own, what we call CalRx, so it's our own branded insulin. We're not subsidizing it, we're just lowering the cost. And by the way, that distinction for Democrats is an incredibly important one. We don't want to subsidize the inefficiencies of the system. We want to use dare I say, free enterprise, capitalist tendencies as a government and compete against the private sector. They did everything to stop this, but we got the price down $11 a pen. And it's just one of many things we're doing. We're doing with diapers next. We just did a bunch of free diapers. Now we're going to start getting our own branded manufactured diapers, which is a big deal because half of the births in our Medi-Cal system, our Medicaid system, California Medi-Cal, half of them are people in that system can't afford the cost of diapers. So we're trying to do it in a lot of categories. And I think it's an interesting approach. So it's not just about coverage, it's about lowering costs. We have to have that mindset. California is the first universal state in the country, regardless of pre-existing conditions, ability to pay, or your immigration status, which I know is controversial, but we've done it. 6.4% uninsured rate. If it's not the lowest, it's right there, near the lowest in the country. But now, after we got coverage, our obsession is around cost. And this is one of the most interesting and exciting pieces of that cost puzzle and solution. And AI is going to define our future in profound ways. I think that 2028 election is going to be an AI election every way, shape, or form. 2026 will be.
We want to remove a lot of these. My team and I have been talking about how we got to get these special interest groups, these disproportionately powerful interest groups and lobbyists out of politics so we can make real progress for the American people. I want to list off some special interest groups, and will you say yes or no if it'll take money from them?
All right, let's go.
What about big oil?
Oh, seriously? You're talking to the wrong guy. Like literally, big oil's number one enemy is me. So not a chance in hell.
Big tobacco.
And by the way, they're the polluted heart of this climate crisis. Big oil and the lies and the mistruths they've been perpetuating the American people and the global world and the globe are disgraceful.
Big tobacco.
No damn way. Yeah.
What about APAC?
APAC never have and will never will.
Were you promised to fight back against these disproportionately powerful special interest groups that are hurting the American people?
Look, I think you follow the money. Every time something goes wrong, follow the money. I support it. I continue to support it. We've struggled with it, but public financing, we do this. We're constantly doing what we call clean money campaign. And we have to do more and better in that respect. But it's, the revolving door, special interest and lobbying, all the self-dealing with stocks portfolios. I think we need to have some version of term limits for Congress. I mean, we have to be a reform-oriented party. And that's something in the past we were defending the status quo. Trump took advantage of that. Democratic Party needs to lean in, and when it comes to lobbying reform and it comes to these corporate special interests,
so you can tell that Mockler wanted to make a point to ask him about this thing about corporate PACs and scaling back corporate power and corporate influence in the Democratic Party. He asked him about APAC specifically. He asked him about the oil lobby specifically, but also a lot of what Mockler is doing here is he's kind of throwing him these questions to give him the opportunity to say something that will get some headlines or kind of change the narrative when it comes to Gavin Newsom. And you can see that with this thing that he says about Howard Lutnick. Do you think Howard Lutnick should resign or step down, or what do you think? Not that that's an unfair question to ask, and I think Howard Lutnick should step down, but you can see that Mockler is angling to try to get some kind of headline there. Gavin Newsom doesn't quite give it to him. He's more savvy than that, but he's also doing that on these issues. And also, I mean, Gavin is selling this book that he wrote. I didn't even know that he wrote a book until this interview. I'm not going to bother talking about it much more than that, but he does make these kind of digs at Kamala Harris, talking about how, well, this is not a political book. Okay, whatever. So don't buy Gavin Newsom's book, but his answers when it comes to some of this corporate stuff is interesting. Because, again, the main problem with Gavin Newsom is that he is a pro-business corporate Democrat. So that does lead to some more progressive policy in some areas than, a Republican. So that's where the incremental difference comes in. Like, yes, a pro-business Democrat is going to be different from a pro-business Republican, because a pro-business Republican is not going to prioritize things like social services or anything progressive or anything that provides welfare to people at all. Whereas a Democrat is at least going to pay some lip service to that or try to find room for that within certain neoliberal implementation of programs. But at the end of the day, Gavin Newsom's attachment to some of these bigger business interests and the fact that he has resorted to maintaining relationships with those entities in order to keep his reputation as governor of California afloat is the reason that in the most recent budget proposal for California, he's scaling back all of these public services, and he's kind of reaffirming his commitment to things like corporate profits, even in saying that I'm the biggest enemy of big oil. He has also spoken to the fact that he wants them to make enormous profits. And so that right there, I think, kind of defines his ideology, because he does want to find these like innovative business solutions for electric cars and take up more space in the marketplace that way. But if you're also saying we want the oil companies to make exorbitant profits, and to be fair, this was a couple years ago that he said that, you're essentially saying that we don't want to tackle the issue of climate change. Really, this isn't really about scaling back the influence and the power that those oil companies have to destroy our environment. And instead, what it's about is creating more opportunity in the electric vehicle space, for example. And so this is a method that has been tried for a long time, and it leads to some meaningful progress. California is a leader in some ways when it comes to these types of innovation, but has it proposed a meaningful alternative to the fossil fuel industry or a meaningful threat to the fossil fuel industry? No, it has not. And the thing about it is, Gavin Newsom, if he were to run for president, unless he's taking a specifically anti-fossil fuels stance, he's going to have a lot of trouble. Pennsylvania and fracking in Pennsylvania is a big problem for any Democrat running for a president. Handling that issue is going to be difficult for anybody. And Gavin Newsom's track record suggests that he would switch on that quickly, despite the fact that it's one of his biggest bragging points as governor. And this thing that he says about AI, I think, is also interesting. He says that 2028 is going to be an AI race as well as 2026, but really he's focusing on 2028 there. So that shows a glimpse into his thinking when it comes to 2028. Now, I don't actually know if I agree with that. I mean, I don't think I could confidently say that AI won't be the most prominent issue in 2028. It's certainly becoming more of an issue. But I think that the assumption that AI is going to continue to take up more of the political, public, and job market space kind of assumes that what the AI companies have told us about their trajectory is true uncritically. Whereas really, if you look at the numbers in terms of how much it's added to the economy, how much of a positive impact these AI tools are making on profit margins, which is a priority for Gavin in his own words, you know, it's just not really there. So the idea that in 2028, generative AI, as we're seeing it now, is going to be the predominant issue, I don't know that I agree with that. I think it would probably be more attached to things like Waymo and versions of the technology that are capable of actually taking people's jobs, so to speak. But I think a lot of the issues that Gavin Newsom has been faced with over the years in California are going to be the major issues in 2028, more so than AI. AI is going to be a part of the conversation, but the idea that it's going to completely take over the political conversation, I don't know that I'm convinced of that yet. I think there's a high chance that it might draw back. And so what does that say about what Gavin Newsom is prepared to be discussing when it comes to the 2028 election? And he's talking about being this innovator, this leader in AI in California, and clearly is taking the stance that he wants to allow these AI companies to continue to build and to continue to grow. And I'm sure that he would be in favor of certain regulations, and he talks a lot about algorithms these days and, like, you know, propaganda on people's phones, and has even hinted that he wants to outlaw social media for people under 16, although I don't know how serious he was about that. So he's toying with these different things. But if you ask me, what you can see pretty clearly, both from his answers here and his track record, is that he plans to take a pretty pro-business and neoliberal approach to some of these issues. And the reason that that alone is a non-starter, let alone his refusal to characterize what happened in Gaza as a genocide, when talking to Ben Shapiro, just like instantly folding when faced with these right-wing characters, but then not talking to somebody like Hassan Piker. He'll talk to Adam Mockler because there's a sense of confidence there that Adam Mockler is going to give him this type of softball interview. But really, every single one of these points is worth pushing him on, because the problem going forward with issues like AI, and especially government incorporation of AI surveillance, what Meta wants to do with Meta glasses, making them have their facial recognition technology on all the time. The thing is that we got a few years of these companies running amok. And the chances that whatever happens in the midterm elections is going to, like, get a handle on AI and all these other companies, it's not likely. I mean, hopefully the Senate can be won back by the Democrats, which is kind of a stretch. The House is likely to be won back. But even if they eke out a majority in the Senate, what exactly are they going to be able to do legislatively on regulation? Who knows? So my point is that everything that we're seeing with AI, specifically when it comes to companies like Palantir and the surveillance aspect of it, the data collection aspect aspect of it, we're going to see that continue to grow. They're trying to grow their capacity to do these things. And then that's coupled with ICE creating these detention facilities and field offices throughout the country, trying to expand their capacity to surveil people, creating lists of people that are supposedly domestic terrorists because of anti-capitalist views or anti-Zionist views, opposing the genocide, which Gavin Newsom refuses to characterize as such, is going to be something that Americans are increasingly tracked, targeted, and profited from on that basis. So whoever takes power from Trump, assuming that it's going to be somebody that takes the country in a different direction, is going to have to be prepared to inherit an enormously overrun private sector and many destroyed institutions that kind of act as a bulwark against that private exploitation. A lot of that is going to be absolutely wrecked. And the capacity of private businesses to act with impunity is going to be enormous. That's just sort of where we're going to be at in 2028. Again, depending on what happens in the midterms, but it's very likely, even if Democrats take power back, that that's still where things are going to be at. So the reason Gavin Newsom is a non-starter is because he is not prepared to take over that infrastructure and do something different with it. And we've seen this happen before with the two most recent Democratic presidents, where they inherited, to some extent, a surveillance state or a growing capacity of the government to track Americans and to trade information throughout agencies. And so we're only seeing further consolidation of that, plus folding in private businesses like Palantir to profit on their end from all of this data and also provide supposedly more efficient solutions on the government side. So if that's the kind of thing that Gavin Newsom is into, and he doesn't have a real aversion to that, he might pay some lip service to it, but consistently with his policy, he does not opt to legislate against corporate interests that want to expand their power to control these spaces. And like most Democrats that we have grown accustomed to, he views those corporate interests as capable of solving problems and taking burden off of the government in order to bring down the budget or whatever it may be. And so I think that while the policy of spending an enormous amount of money from the government and having enormously expansive welfare programs, it comes with some issues on the back end. But it is incredibly necessary at this moment, and certainly in the next few years in America, in order to reestablish a ground floor to this country, because it's being ripped out from under us, and businesses being able to continue to monetize more and more of our social lives, people on the street being facial recognized without their permission. That's more and more going to be how companies like Meta and Palantir are making their bread and butter. And that erodes the social contract even further than the institutions that are crumbling. So my point is that neoliberal corporatism is just not going to cut it. And the thing about Gavin Newsom that is reliable, he might say all kinds of different things. He knows how to say the right things, appeal to the right people, but ultimately he is always going to opt for a compromise position with the business class in America. And given how powerful that business class is going to be after a Trump era, that does not seem like the type of politics that is going to help us unwind this situation. And everybody, even people on the liberal Democrat side, wants to see a serious reversal of Trump era policy, and that includes what corporations and businesses are doing, dumping money into elections. Mockler is giving voice to that concern because that is the concern of the general public at the moment. Everybody knows that these things are a problem and they require radical solutions. So even the aspects of the Democratic Party, the factions that are averse to those type of radical solutions and having more of a tendency towards these neoliberal pro-business policies, they also want things like full abolishment of ICE. I heard Mockler say that specifically the other day in his conversation with Hassan Piker. And among liberals, that has become a much more mainstream position. So somebody who's going to seize on that rather than trying to moderate it, somebody who's going to seize on that momentum that the electorate is having and use it for radically transformative policy. That is what Kamala Harris could have done on Gaza. She could have seized the momentum of enthusiasm of people who wanted to end that genocide, and she could have used that to be swept into power on some transformative policy. But it was the consultants around her and her own lack of political instinct and lack of political courage, that essentially led her to wanting to moderate on that issue, despite the fact that the base is running far and away to the left of her. And no amount of Twitter astroturfing can change the fact that the base is outflanking Democrats consistently at this point. And so the only thing that is going to be able to capture that momentum in a way that's winning and in a way that's going to actually like prevent this nightmare from happening again is to propose an end to these neoliberal policies. Until we can get a grip on this country again and figure out how to rebuild these institutions in a way that makes up for their deficiencies that allowed this to happen in the first place, allowing businesses to run amok and to continue pursuing their profits is not the answer. We need to redesign America's approach to government, and Gavin Newsom is not prepared to do that.
Me too close to, too much to do. The mission is too crucial. Shout it out from the rooftops until I lose vocals. Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity.